That was a scene from the classic 1961 film Claudel English, starring our guest today, Diane McBain. Miss McBain had a varied and successful career in Hollywood, appearing in such films as The Ice Palace, opposite Richard Burton, Parish with Claudette Colbert, and Spin Out in 1966, opposite Elvis Presley. Her television work includes Maverick, Burke's Law, Sugarfoot, The Wild Wild West, Batman, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., but she's perhaps most fondly remembered as Daphne from the TV series Surfside 6, alongside Van Williams, Lee Patterson, Troy Donahue, and Margarita Sierra. Daphne was the wealthy blonde socialite, always dressed in white, who got caught up in the adventures of three hip detectives living on a houseboat in Miami. Miss McBain has just written her autobiography called Famous Enough. I love that title. It chronicles her time in Hollywood, as well as some personal and private struggles she battled along the way. It's a remarkable book, and Diane McBain is a remarkable woman. What a great thrill it is to have you on the program today.
Thank you.
Now, I listed a whole bunch of your screen credits, but there's something in your background before you got into acting that fascinates me. You were crowned Miss Real Estate, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So, apropos of nothing, and we'll get into more serious discussion in just a moment, but I have to ask, what were the responsibilities and the duties of Miss Real Estate?
Well, just the same sort of thing that most young women who are crowned, queens of anything have to do. They have to go to all of the events of the particular organization that you're the queen of. And that was pretty much it. It was a complicated time because in Glendale, the world was sort of slow. We were kind of behind the times. We were a very homogeneous kind of population there. And during that period that I was elected queen to be representing the real estate agencies, I found out that they were discriminating against black people and people of other colors to come to Glendale at all. And it caused a real problem for me because personally I didn't feel that was right.
Right.
And so I was in a lot of conflict during that period of time.
But I would think on a purely cosmetic level, seeing you as Miss Real Estate probably put an idea in someone's head that we have to get this young lady in pictures.
Yes. I was Miss Real Estate, and then I was Miss Glendale, or Days of the Verdugos, they called it, and Miss Catalina at one point as well. So all of those little, events kind of lent themselves to, what happened finally.
Did you always want to be an actress?
No. No, I didn't have aspirations to be an actress terribly early, although once I got to do a couple of things as an actress. I did little plays in Glendale Center Theater and things like that. Then I started to think, well, gee, this is kind of fun, and you could actually make money doing this. So,
right.
Why not? If somebody wants me to do it, I'll do it. And then I got into commercial work, and it just grew from there.
I'd like to ask you a little bit about the TV series Surfside 6, one of my favorite shows. In fact, that whole family of shows, Hawaiian Eye, 77 Sunset Strip, Bourbon Street Beat, Surfside 6, that was sort of the CSI franchise of its day.
Yeah, they sort of were, weren't they? Yeah.
I know that you worked with Van Williams and Troy Donahue on other film and TV projects as well. What was it like working with them?
Well, I adored them both. Van was a darling man, and I really loved his wife. He had a family going already. He was on his way to being a real solid citizen, and I really liked him for that. And then Troy, I liked him for entirely different reasons. He was a very, very sweet, adorable guy. And, we had a moment there where we thought we might have a little affair or something, but it passed. It passed, and we didn't. So, but Troy was just such a sweet, wonderful human being and a very tender-hearted person.
Surfside 6.
That's a scene from Surfside 6, featuring our guest today, Diane McBain, along with actor Chad Everett. Miss McBain, we mentioned your film work and your TV work at the very beginning. Do you have a preference? Did you prefer doing films over television?
Yes. Primarily because you have more time to do it in. At least usually. Some of the independent films, they did them in a very short period of time. But a good film done by a studio or a big company where they have the luxury of some money, then you can take your time and you can really do good work and spend the time and redo it until it's exactly the way you want it. So that's really good.
Well, when you did Claudel English, you were on Surfside 6 at the same time, weren't you?
Oh, yes. But I was at the same studio, so I just changed costumes and went from one to the other. It was quite a time. I had hardly any time to breathe during that period.
And considering the time frame we're talking about here, the very early 60s, you must have come in at the tail end of the studio system.
I did,
yes.
Yeah. Maybe even a little fortunate to have gotten into the last few years. But it's also a double-edged sword. A studio system is, you get into it, and then they do everything for you. They provide your publicity, they give you your costumes, they give you the roles to play. They do everything for you. And then if, it's over, which, of course, it always comes to an end, you're left to out there in the world, really, with no experience having handled these things yourself. So you become really pretty dependent on the studio system. And that's what happened to me, and I think it happened to quite a few of the people that I worked with, Troy and Van, and a lot of those folks went through a difficult period after the studio system.
Well, I know that in addition to starring on Surfside 6 with Troy Donahue, you also acted opposite him in the film Parish, which was made at around the same time that Surfside 6 was on the air. Later on, you worked with your Surfside 6 co-star Van Williams again on Batman for 20th Century Fox.
Yes, I did, yeah.
And Pinky Pinkston was an entirely different kind of role for you. And I'm sure you did it the one day and didn't think you'd ever see it again. But the longevity of the Batman TV series is amazing. It just came out on DVD for the first time and Blu-ray. And, here we are all these years later talking about it. And you did 2 episodes. Was that a lot of fun to do?
Oh, yeah, a lot of fun. Oh, that was always fun. It's kind of interesting. I'm glad to have had Batman under my belt, as a lot of other things, and of course the Elvis picture as well. I've learned since that if you aren't in an iconic film of some sort, your career is just going to become a part of history, and nobody will ever remember anybody. But the reason these things carry on is because they're iconic. They are so different. Even in their own period, and even in today's period, the Batman series is so different that it stays, fresh and strong, even till today.
You mentioned working with Elvis, and that was in the 1966 movie Spin Out. Mm-hmm. And to this day, people have a misconception about Elvis, that he basically showed up and, mumbled into the camera and then left. I've spoken to several actresses who've worked with Elvis, and they've all said the same thing. He was very professional. He knew his lines. He'd rehearse. He took it very seriously. Was that your experience with him?
Oh, he was very professional. Oh, yes. A terrific person. I think a very well-disciplined person, considering, of course, the kind of life that he was afforded, that he managed to do as well as he did for as long as he did. And, he was pretty much alone up there on that pedestal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why he ran into trouble later on, because he just didn't have anybody really he could confide in.
That's the song that Elvis Presley sang to our guests today on the program, Diane McBain, All That I Am, from the 1966 film Spin Out. Miss McBain, there's another movie you made in 1968. I don't know how you feel about this film, but it's gone on to be something of a cult classic. It's called The Miniskirt Mob.
Yes. It is, isn't it? Well, the Miniskirt Mob was, it was a stretch for me, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was not exactly suited for the part of Shane, but I enjoyed trying to do that and doing it, and I got to learn how to ride a motorcycle in the process. That was very useful. And it was fun. It was just a lot of fun. It was a good cast. We had a good time together.
They're miniskirt riders.
I'd like to ask you about this autobiography, Famous Enough. How did this whole project come about?
Oh, well, thanks for asking. It came about primarily because people kept asking me all of my life whether I was going to write a book, and I never really could think of a good theme for it. I didn't want to just write the typical Hollywood story. So it took me a long time before I actually decided on a good theme for my story, and that's when I started writing. And, of course, the writing period took a great deal of time, and then Michael Michaud joined me as a partner in the writing after a while, and then we completed it and published it. So it took a very long time, but that's pretty much how it came about.
Suppose a young actress came to you for advice about getting into the business. What would you say to her?
I hate to say it, but go home. Jeez. You really want to do this? It's a wonderful profession. I don't mean to make it sound like, oh, God, let's not do this anymore. No, it's a wonderful profession, and I mean, it's artistic, and you look at the people who succeed in it. They have a wonderful life, at least a very interesting life. And so, it's wonderful. And if you can actually do it, and if you really are good, then by all means, stick to it. But if people aren't raving about your, amateur performances, you might want to rethink it.
Now, if you had the chance to go back and do it all over again, would you change anything?
Well, I don't want to sound like I have regrets, because I don't. I feel like, whatever happens to you in your life is what is meant to keep you growing as a human being, and I have grown, and I have a wonderful life, and I'm very happy with it. But at the same time, looking back, I saw a couple of opportunities there when I was writing the book that I hadn't considered as seriously maybe as I should have. And one of them was a Dr. Richard Monty, who wanted me to marry him, but I was only 17 and turning 18 and just on the brink of having a career. And it just, I thought, wow, gosh, I'm just not ready for marriage here. And look at what's ahead of me. I could be doing some really wonderful things in the future. So I made the choice, and, there you go. But there's a part of me that really misses the fact that I did not have a family, a big family even. And, I have a friend who went ahead and just had a family. And, boy, when she sends her Christmas card around, it's a huge family. I don't see how they get everybody in the picture. It's amazing, yeah. But, me, it's me and my son. That's it. So we don't have much family at all.
Well, it worked out for you.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm not complaining. Like I said.
Now, in your book, you chronicle your film and television career, but you also write about some very personal tragedies that occurred to you. You write very honestly about them. Was that difficult for you?
Well, yes, of course. Yeah, there were a couple of attacks. I was attacked and raped on a couple of occasions, so that was difficult to deal with. But it was important to do.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes, and it was cathartic. I didn't just start when I wrote the book to write about it. I actually wrote an article in Cosmopolitan magazine not that long after it actually happened. And that's where I began my, quest to kind of rid myself of the, angst and problems of PTSD. And that's how you do it. You know, you write it or you talk about it. You get it out of your system. And it was a great process to do that in. Yeah.
And I think that there may be, some young girls who could benefit, certainly.
I hope so. And
Yeah.
they did then. I got a lot of letters when I wrote the Cosmo article about that. And women would say, gee, I never even thought of telling anybody, but I see that you really feel that that's important. And it was important, because if you can't talk about it, you're always going to have that inside of you.
Right.
It's going to tear you apart.
I'd like to give everybody an opportunity to find out where they can get your book, which is, once again, Famous Enough.
Famous Enough, a Hollywood memoir. And you can get it at Bear Manor Media, that's the publisher. Or you can go to Amazon.com and probably, get it a little bit cheaper. I'm not sure. Also, they have electronic books available as well.
Right. And, of course, people could follow you on your Facebook page. I was surprised to see you, you went from the queen of real estate. You're becoming the queen of Facebook.
Oh, I hope so. That would be something, wouldn't it?
Well, I saw the attention the book was getting has risen considerably ever since you started posting on Facebook.
It has.
Yeah.
It has, and I'm very happy about that, to be sure. I've resisted Facebook for a long time. I'm an older person. I can't help it. I'm a little bit behind on the technological thing, and I was concerned about doing it because I didn't really quite understand it, frankly. And so my partner, Michael, got busy and did it for me. And, God bless him. Without Michael, we would not be talking to each other. So I'm just really blessed to have him in my life.
Well, we've been blessed to have you and your work in our lives for these many years. And I want to wish you all the success in the world with the book. Once again, it's called Famous Enough by Diane McBain, our guest today. And Miss McBain, it's been a pleasure to speak with you, and you have a great rest of your day.
Oh, the same to you. Thank you.